like it usually does. All right, cool. So welcome to the Pandemic Pinup Happy Hour. We are going to be mixing with tea today, which I'm super excited about. And then the cooking class later today is cooking with tea. So that's also really neat. We just kind of have the theme going all day. So the first cocktail we're going to make is something called Hunter's Punch. And I'm going to give you the specs for the original cocktail. This is not a cocktail I have created. And then I'm going to walk you through the variations that I like to do, just because I like to play around with flavor profiles a little bit. So for this cocktail, you will need a shaker. And this is a Jägermeister-based cocktail. I do not usually like Jaeger. I got turned on to ginger Jaeger, also known as Scharf. It's really nice. It still has those herbal tones, and the ginger is not incredibly strong. It's fairly mellow. If you wanted to do this cocktail, you could totally make it with any other liqueur or alcohol. You could also take a vodka and infuse it with herbs and ginger if you want to follow this flavor profile. But the original cocktail is going to have 1 3/4 ounces of brewed cold black tea. It'll have 3/4 ounce of lime juice. It'll have a 1/2 ounce of maple syrup and 1 3/4 ounces of Jägermeister. And the original Hunter's tea is just made with the OG standard Jägermeister. But for what I'm going to make, we're going to use 1 3/4 ounces of the ginger Jägermeister. I'm going to put that directly into my cocktail shaker. And then I brewed some black tea. I just used Louisiana black tea. That's what I use to make sweet tea at home. And I brewed a cup of water per tea bag. So I'm going to use 1 3/4 ounces of that. And then I like my tea with lemon more than I like it with lime. So instead of that lime juice, we're going to use 3/4 ounce of lemon juice. And then per the instructions in the flyer that I put out at the beginning of the week, there was a recipe on how to make a maple ginger simple syrup. So that's what we'll be using for that. And we're going to use 1/2 ounce. And this is a very, very simple cocktail. I just like it because it has a really easy drinking flavor profile. So once you have all of your ingredients in your shaker, I'm going to add some ice. And we're going to shake it for about 15 seconds. All right, ice in the shaker. And here we go. Now you can dirty dump this cocktail, which is where you just pour the contents of your shaker with the ice that we've already got in there directly into the glass. But I'm in love with my new fat ice cubes that I'll drop in. So I have a giant ice cube in there, and then I'm going to just strain my cocktail directly over the glass. Directly into the glass, not into the glass, into the glass. And I like a little wedge of lemon with my tea. That way, if it's a little too sweet, I can balance it out. But also, one of my favorite things about Louisiana black tea, the brand, is their little tea tags on the bags always say that they're specially blended for different things. So it'll say like specially blended for afternoon conversations or hammocks. And I just find it a little cute little marketing thing that they do. I think it's a nice little detail. So the one that I used to infuse this said specially blended for daydreaming, which I thought was appropriate for a refreshing tea cocktail. So that is my version of the Hunter's tea. Cheers, Jack. All right. Now moving along quickly, but always forward. The next cocktail we're going to make, if you had the flyer and you were trying to follow along, the next cocktail is going to be the Fish House Punch number 3. So there's a cocktail named Fish House Punch number 1 and number 2. And I couldn't really think of a different name. So I just, because that was the inspiration I used to kind of play with this cocktail, just named it number 3. Hopefully third time's the charm, and it's way better than the originals if you've had the originals. This is a cocktail that I like to serve in a highball glass. So, oh, we have someone else coming in. Mr. Noodler. So, for the fish house punch, we are going to be using a bunch of different liquors, and it kind of turns into a really softly boozy cocktail. It's really nice. Let me see. There we go. So for Jack, for you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the ingredient I'm going to use and then the quantity. And then each time I say an ingredient, I'll tell you yours so we can at least be mixing at the same time. So Jack messaged me before the class to let me know that he was having trouble acquiring certain ingredients. And that's kind of part of being in this whole pandemic situation. So if you find something that you really want to make along with me and can't find the ingredients, please feel free, reach out, let me know, especially if you let me know ahead of time. It's super easy to come up with substitutions. So for me, I'm going to be using a 3/4 ounce, and this is for the actual one that's on the flyer. So a 3/4 ounce of cognac. Jack, you'll be using 1 ounce. We're going to pour that into our shaker. And then I'm going to be using 1 ounce of aged rum. This is probably one of my favorite rums, Flor de Caña from Nicaragua, and this is their 7-year-old expression. Jack, you'll be using a 1/2 ounce of your rum. Also, right into my shaker. And then I'm going to be using 3/4 ounce of apricot liqueur. Jack, you'll be able to use a 3/4 ounce of your Grand Marnier. If you cannot find apricot liqueur, it does seem to be a little bit more niche. You could definitely use a peach liqueur. I've done this with pear. It also works really nicely. Or like Jack, who's going to be using Grand Marnier today. Then we're going to use that same ginger maple syrup we used for the first cocktail. And that's going to be 1/4 ounce. So Jack, I know you went ahead and made that. So just use that ginger maple, 1/4 ounce. And then I'm going to be using a
Chandler, how much is a 1/4 ounce? Is that a teaspoon or a tablespoon?
So a 1/4 ounce will be 1.5 teaspoons.
Teaspoons.
Teaspoons, yes. So 1 ounce is 2 tablespoons. A 1/2 ounce is 1 tablespoon, and half of 1 tablespoon would be 1.5 teaspoons.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem. Not everyone has jiggers and shakers, guys, but you can make cocktails as long as you have a glass and what you need ingredient-wise. We can shake them in protein shakers. I've seen them shaken in Tupperware containers. It doesn't really matter. We can make a lot of things work. So now I'm going to be using a 1/2 ounce of lemon juice. Jack, you're going to be using a 1/2 ounce of that orange juice. And fresh squeezed is always nice, but if you don't have it, you can just use the bottled variety. And then for this cocktail, I brewed up some jasmine green tea. Jack, you'll be using the hibiscus that you brewed. And this is just regular steeped tea, no sweetener, and water. I can't hear you, Mr. Jack.
How much?
You're going to be using 1.5 ounces.
Thank you.
Hello, Miss Casey and Mr. New. I see y'all over there.
Hey, what's going on?
How y'all doing today?
We missed you.
Missed you bunches.
Oh my gosh, we're going to do so many awesome things today because, we do this, then I'm going to cook. If y'all guys show up, that'll be cool. And then if not, we're going to see each other later. It'll be a good day.
Will be.
I'm excited to see what you're going to cook. I didn't even look at what your plan was.
Oh, yeah. So the whole theme today is tea. So all of the cocktails today have tea. And then for the cooking class later today, we'll be making Chinese tea eggs. We'll be making a overnight oats that uses tea. Ooh. And then we'll be making a tea-infused ramen. So it's kind of like breakfast, lunch, or breakfast, dinner, and snack. So if you actually do the class, or if anyone does the class along tonight with me, then they'll have dinner ready, they'll have breakfast ready for in the morning, and then they'll already have a snack. So it's a pretty cool little transition. But yeah, it'll be cool.
Nice, I like it.
Okay, so just to recap, so in my shaker, I have a 3/4 ounce of cognac, 1 ounce of aged rum, 3/4 ounce of apricot liqueur, a 1/4 ounce of the ginger infused maple simple syrup, a 1/2 ounce of lemon, and 1.5 ounces of the jasmine tea. And Jack, you should have 1 ounce of cognac, 1/2 ounce of rum, 3/4 ounce of Grand Marnier, a 1/4 ounce of the ginger maple syrup, a 1/2 ounce of the orange juice, and 1.5 ounces of the hibiscus tea. Perfect. So what we're going to do before we ice our shaker, you will preferably be pouring this into a highball glass, or if you just have a wine glass, that works too. You want to make sure you put ice in here and ice in your shaker. We're going to shake it up real cute for about 10 seconds and then pour it or strain it right over the fresh ice. And if I'm icing my glass ahead of time and it's one like a highball, I like to try to over ice it just a little bit, because when you start to pour the cocktail onto it, the ice will settle and then it'll leave a lot of space. So it's almost like the ice is overflowing. To the side, so I have ice in my shaker, and I'm going to go ahead and shake, shake, shake. All right. I like watching people shake with me. It's fun. So much fun. So I'm going to very carefully and very slowly pour this cocktail into my glass. Ooh. I actually might have 1 ice cube too many. Fantastic. Let me take off that extra ice cube. So now that I have this cocktail as such in my glass, the garnish I'm going to use is a swath of orange and a swath of lemon. And that's just kind of a tribute to the original cocktail, which had a lemon oleo saccharum. So this is just my way of adding in some more of those citrus notes. So just take a vegetable peeler, take a peel, express the oils right over the cocktail, put it into the glass. And then I'm going to do the same with my lemon. Just vegetable peeler, take a peel, express it over the glass, and then put it in there. And that is the Fish House Punch number 3. Cheers. Mm-hmm.
So, Taylor, I've heard of the fish punch. Oh, I'm echoing somewhere. Fish punch house before. I've never heard of the numbered variations of it.
Yeah, so there's 2 original ones. There's the number 1 and the number 2. Those recipes are very easily found on diffordsguide.com. They vary very slightly, quite honestly. If you've had one, then the flavor profile is really similar. I definitely changed up the tea, definitely changed up the ratios just a tiny bit, the sweetener. I just wanted it to be, I really enjoy the floral notes of jasmine tea because they come off really strong, but they don't taste really bitter. Like you don't necessarily need to overbrew them. So that green tea being really subtle in the background, but that floral note of the jasmine being on the very nose of that cocktail just blends really pretty with the split alcohol base because it's also 3 different liquors. But yeah, check them out on diffordsguide.com. 1 and 2, and then mine is just number 3 because I'm not creative. But yeah, so those are the first 2 cocktails. And as you can tell, these cocktails are just super, super simple today. It looks like I have a bunch going on, but that's just because I'm making different cocktails. But quite honestly, like the syrups are really easy to make. the last cocktail we're gonna make has a vodka that we infused with chai. Chai is a spiced black tea that you can definitely make from scratch. There are a ton of different recipes. And it's kind of like the way some people like gin, but they don't necessarily like juniper forward gins. Perhaps they prefer like citrus forward gins. And chai tea can be the same. There's some that are very cinnamon heavy, some that are very clove heavy, some that are just kind of even keel on all the spices. But if you have black tea and baking spices at home, you can always come close to making a basic chai tea. So I would always use some cinnamon, star anise if you have it. You can use allspice, cardamom, powdered ginger, or even fresh ginger if you're doing that as an infusion. Clove as well. And believe it or not, some chais even have black pepper. So there's just a lot of ratios you can play around with. I don't really have like the perfect chai because everybody's palate's different. So if you don't have chai tea, make one. It's really not a difficult thing to do. So I named the last cocktail the DCR, which stands for the Dirty Chai Russian. So if you've ever had like a white Russian, it's a coffee liqueur and vodka cocktail with cream in it. And then if you've ever had a dirty chai, which is probably one of my favorite coffee cocktails, is a chai tea latte with a shot of espresso inside. So it's really hard for me to step away from coffee. This is my favorite way to get the best of both worlds because teas are also just equally as beautiful and varied. So we took vodka, if you did your prep for the class, and I infused it with chai tea. I think Jack didn't have chai tea, so he did the black tea bag with spices. Also very, very easy. And the one element of this cocktail that's really, really important is knowing your alcohol percentages because dairy and alcohol don't always go well together. They like to curdle. We can control that by fixing the ratios. So what that means is you need to know the ABV or the proof of your vodka and coffee liquor that we'll be using. So my vodka is 40%, as most standard vodkas are. So if yours is that, then we're good to go. However, my coffee liqueur is not really a coffee liqueur. It's an espresso infused rum. It's probably one of my favorite coffee anythings in the liquor world right now. And this one is 30%, whereas Jack has Kahlua, which is a very standard coffee liqueur many people are familiar with, and it's at 20%. So if I use this in the same ratio that he uses his, because mine has a higher alcohol content, my cocktail will curdle. So I'm going to adjust my ratios so that it doesn't do that. But if you have Kahlua at home, then you can follow the recipe that I'm going to be giving Jack for his modifications. And then if you just want to infuse something at home with coffee liqueur that's at a 30%, then you can use my ratios. So the only other element to keep in mind is there is the optional ingredient of chai tea concentrate. Tazo is probably the most popular brand on the market. It was made very popular by Starbucks. And it's like a chai tea latte in a box that you can just pretty much pour on ice. I found a local Texas brand. As you can see, it's kind of milky. And sometimes they have stabilizers. Sometimes they're all black. It's just chai tea that you then would add milk to. But this is optional. I like to do it just because it amps up the chai flavor. So you'll see I did this to amp up the chai flavor, and then I did something else that you'll see in a minute to amp up the coffee, because I'm just never satisfied. I always want more. So for this cocktail, you will need your shaker. And then both Jack and I are going to be using 2 ounces of our chai vodka. Oh, perfect. I love when my little containers are like perfect. This is the most adorable little mason jar too. I got this in the mini liquor section. I think it's like a moonshine. But it's so freaking perfect. I love this little thing. So I have my 2 ounces of chai infused vodka. Jack is going to use 1 ounce of Kahlua. I'm going to use a 1/2 ounce of my coffee infused rum. And the reason I really like this particular brand, I don't really like endorse brands because someone asks me to. If I like it, I will tell you about it. I like it because it's less sweet. I like it because it's not as thick and viscous as most coffee liqueurs. And that's also because it's not a liqueur, it's a rum. And just the smell and the flavor on this is like the most beautiful Italian espresso in a bottle that'll get you drunk. So it's really good. It's really good on ice. It's great in your morning coffee. My favorite combo is mixing this with bourbon cream and coffee and making like a version of an Irish coffee. But Kahlua is just as good if y'all are into that. And then I'm going to be using the chai tea concentrate. So I'm going to add an ounce of that. And then before we add our cream, we're going to add some ice to our shaker. This is just going to help take some of that heat or like that hot alcohol content off of the alcohol, let it chill a little bit right before you put the cream in. So a little bit of ice in your shaker, and then you want to prepare your glass. I'm going to use an actual little teacup. And I made a coffee ice cube. So I'll put that in there to amp up the coffee. So once we have that iced glass, iced shaker, we're going to use 1 ounce of cream. If you find, I'm using half and half. You can use heavy cream, you can use whole milk, you can use an alternative milk. We're going to pour that in there, shake it, don't break it, and then pour it over our ice. And I'm going to strain that over my beautiful little coffee cube. And then for my garnish, you don't have to garnish this at all, but I'm going to just use a little star of anise and just float it right on top because they're just really pretty. So I'll bring it over. This is definitely a cocktail you have to see from the top because everything's super floaty. Isn't that pretty, guys? Yeah.
Great.
Let's see.
I'm gonna have to find that grind now.
This is so good. Oh, my other favorite quality about Grind is it's also only $14 a bottle.
Dude, I just looked at like Astor Wines and they had it for 60. So yeah, I don't know what's going
Wait,
on.
what? No.
Yeah.
You and I'll talk about that offline then.
All right.
Jack, how did yours turn out?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not a tea kind of person. This
Okay.
is fantastic.
Yeah. All right. I love making people be about things they don't think they're about. Yes.
This is glorious.
Have you ever had a dirty chai?
No.
Okay. So I highly recommend you try one. If you want to make one at home, make a shot of espresso or a very strongly infused, like small amount of coffee, about 2 ounces worth, and then take some chai tea, which you now know you can make yourself, right? You would do the same thing that you did for the vodka, but then instead of infusing it into vodka, you just steep it in hot water. And then add a little cream or add a little milk, and then you pour that coffee in there, and it's good. Oh, it's so good. I will say, if you do make like a regular dirty chai, though, they benefit from a little bit of sugar. Like I usually drink my coffee without sugar. I just do cream or milk and then coffee. But a little bit of sugar when it comes to baking spices is like adding salt to a steak, right? They help a lot of those bitter, tannic, spice notes just kind of round themselves out and be a little bit more palatable. So adding a small amount of simple syrup or agave or honey or maple will just kind of round out those flavors. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. This is so good. I'm about this. See, the first time I did this though, the first time I bought Grind, I did this, and then an hour later, I was 3/4 of the way through the bottle and realized it was really, really good. Luckily, I was working from home, so it was okay.
I'm probably gonna have another one of these this morning.
Yes. No, they're great. They really are. And quite honestly, they work really well. Like if you do, say you're working at home or you're just having a relaxing morning at home doing whatever, I like to kind of batch these a little bit, if you will, where I do the like tea and the coffee liquor and the vodka all ready together. And then it's just already chilling in the fridge so that you don't have to constantly shake them all the time. and then just add in the cream when you're ready to drink it. And half the time I just use mason jars because I have these perfect little mason jars that are about 8 ounces. And so then I'll just use that as my shaker, put that ice in there, and then just drink directly from the jar. Yeah, it's good stuff. But yeah, that concludes our cocktails today, guys. They were like super, super simple cocktails. Little information about what we're doing for the rest of the month. I have finally gotten my life together and come up with a program. And if I say it online, then I have to do it, right? So this is me forcing myself to actually be accountable. But yeah, today I just wanted to kind of make it easy, simple, quick, and fun. So we stuck with tea. And like I said, we are definitely cooking with tea later. And then next week, I will be out of town at a friend's house whose kitchen I'm going to take over, whether they like it or not. And I have approved it with them. But we will be doing a combo class. It'll be aperitivo hour. So we'll be making some kind of Italian aperitivo style cocktails, which are just really nice and refreshing, especially with the hot weather that's been going around, and like little finger foods. So it'll just be one big class and it'll be good. And then for Father's Day, we're going to be doing dude drinks. We're going to set stuff on fire, have big knives, drink a lot of booze, have beer and potatoes and meat. That's probably going to be my favorite class. You are not required to be a dad to attend, but bring your dads, or if you're just like a cool cat daddy, you can come and show up. And then the last class of the month is going to focus on using bitters that most people are familiar with using in old fashions, a few drops at a time. We're going to try and use those in larger amounts or even as a base spirit for the different cocktails that we'll be doing. And I'm going to be coming up with some menu recipes also for using bitters in the kitchen. So it'll be a really interesting class. I'm very excited about that one. But thanks for stopping by. I'm going to turn off the live Facebook. I'll be posting recipes later. If you want to join us for the cooking class, there is a different link. You can find it on the Underground Cooking Club on Facebook. And it starts at 6 p.m. Central Time. Yeah, Texas time, so I believe Central Time. So I'll either see you then or see y'all next week. Bye.